because ultimately, beyond the money and beyond the business, it is the relationships with these people that they can be better off with the decision that you make.
If I wasn't in the office tomorrow, would my team and clients know what to do?
What does the team need to do, learn, and who's going to do it if you're not there? And is the bench there to pull that off?
Welcome to the Total Succession Show. I'm your host, Tyson Ray, joined by Kim Cochenour. We're glad you're here. Subscribe at totalsuccession.com/podcast and let each episode guide you closer to a confident, well-planned exit. Today's conversation just might be the nudge you need to start preparing for what's next.
Today, we are talking about one of the most personal decisions every advisor faces. Should you sell your practice to a team member or roll it up into a larger firm? It's a really tough choice, and we know that it is not a one-size-fits-all kind of answer. Every choice you face when it comes to selling your practice is going to come with trade-offs, and some that are pretty obvious and some that are not. So this episode is all about helping you evaluate each option. So we're going to dig into the impact of your team and your clients, the valuation of your practice, and cultural alignment. So if you're kind of wrestling with this, which of the exit paths is right for you, this is the episode we are so excited for you to listen to, because we're here to help you gain some clarity on what's best for you and your practice. So Tyson, let's break it down. When an advisor is thinking about their exit strategy, what's really at stake here?
What's really at stake is your clients. What's really at stake is the relationships that you've built with family and friends that have entrusted you with your life savings, and whose hands are you leaving them in? And part of this is not waiting. Part of this internal, external decision isn't waiting to your do your succession, isn't waiting till you walk out the door. You need to build it, because we have talked with advisors that had the plan of doing it internally until they finally wanted to go pull the trigger and found out their team didn't want it, or the team didn't want to pay for what it was worth, or the team felt that they built it, so why did they have to buy what they built? Um, Part of this is having alignment with your team, that it's to realize that an external solution may actually be better for your clients and your team. And it's realizing what is the decision and pros and cons of internal or external, and what's the buy-in both for yourself as the founder, and what your expectations and goals are, and the team that's going to be there taking care of the clients most likely if you're no longer there, and what partner and what's better. Because at the end, I think the real purpose of everything we're doing with this Total Succession podcast and the book that we're going to be launching is everything about avoiding future regret, so that when you're at church or at the game or out on the town or at the club or wherever you are, and you've been retired and you've made this decision, when you bump into those clients, are they saying, thank you for leaving me with the team, or leaving me with this other solution that was outside of the team? Because ultimately, beyond the money and beyond the business, it is the relationships with these people that they can be better off with the decision that you make. And that's where the accountability needs to start and end.
Well, and Tyson, you hit on it. It comes down to more than just money. A lot of advisors aren't taking the time to think it through. They're focused on the transaction, that they might not be thinking through the human side of the decision. And where we've seen some of these deals fall apart or advisors walk away is when they're feeling like they're losing something. So we really want to help you to think through both paths. So let's kind of walk through some of the pros and cons of each. So let's kind of talk on the internal side first. You're thinking about selling to someone in your firm. Tyson, what are some of the pros and cons? And let's start with the pros.
Or most of my career of 27 years, probably for 2 decades, that was all you did was internal. I mean, you built it to have the junior advisor take it over. I took over a practice when I started my career after 5 years. That was kind of the expectation. The pros and cons of an internal succession is you have all the control. You have all the time you need. You're not having outside influences, demands, earnouts, stresses. You get to basically set all those terms. Now, that's a pro. The con of that is you have unlimited options. You have all kinds of time. You have all kinds of terms. The pros of that is that you can have a lot of training. You can build out a team to do what you're doing. You can build out the team that can download what's in your head about the client relationships and be able to have that transition. I the That is also a pro. The downside of internal successions is you're going to get less than what the markets are paying for practices. A con is some of these external opportunities bring other resources or other um, solutions and protections for the clients that you yourself may not have internally or haven't built out for yourself, whether it's the tech stack, how compliance is handled, how the money is handled. Because depending on how you're affiliated with the custodian or how you're affiliated in the industry, you may have some solutions being done for you that, or you're doing them yourself that now you got to find somebody else in the team to do them. If it's internal, that the external may solve some of those.
Yeah. So pros, you're kind of keeping everything intact for the client. It's the team that the faces they're used to seeing, the culture. There's some of that continuity and can kind of be smooth. But on that com side, there's a huge financing hurdle. Things might kind of get complicated when it's tied to the valuation and what they might be able to pay or what they're willing to pay. And there's some of those roles and responsibilities that might not be able to be transitioned well. So let's kind of flip the script a little bit and look at the external option. So it doesn't have to be a big external option, but it's external. It's going outside of the people within your four walls. So, Tyson, let's kind of talk through what an external path could look like. What are some of the pros?
The pros are a lot of the decisions are going to be made for you because the buyer's going to dictate what they're willing to buy, and you have to accept that. And so the pros are some of this. How this works is who the external solution is. The cons, I think, is that um, you have a firm, you have a culture, you have a team, you have a way of doing things that an external acquirer. In most cases, you're going to be bought in. You're buying into their now culture and way of doing things. I think pros and cons. Your internal successions, where you have control and you get to dictate things, take longer because you need to develop teams and solutions that need to backfill your absence that you didn't need because you're there. That
Hmm.
becomes a pro on the external. That a lot of the external opportunities that are out there are going to be able to backfill you almost immediately and bring in some of these solutions that you haven't had to build out because you're doing it as the
Mhm.
founder.
Those resources might be really huge if you don't have a team that's built that out. But on the con side, there could be a risk of a culture clash there.
The other part of it, though, is it really has to do with who is on the team that can take over what you have internally, because an external solution may bring the leadership that your team needs to work under. That if it is very hard for a founder to bring in another leader that complements them, excuse me, not complements them, replaces them.
Yeah.
And if that's not already embedded in the firm and you're going to try and bring that person in as your succession internally, is your team going to follow that new leader? That sometimes these external ones bring in that leadership characteristic and the problem solving characteristic that lets the comfort of your team still stay in their job, still have employment contracts, still have some certainty that the internal succession may not.
What are some of the questions that you can be asking yourself to really help you get clear on your priorities and what path will get you where you want to be? So, Tyson, let's kind of dig into that because you, the listener, have to think through some of these questions to help you make that decision between internal and external. Because there's a lot of different things to figure out once you get there, but that's first.
I think what you need to do is be open to the possibilities and explore both. I think what you need to do is have have honest conversations with yourself. If you didn't show up tomorrow, what does the team need to do, learn, and who's going to do it if you're not there? And is the bench there to pull that off, and compensate you or monetize the practice for the value that it's worth? At the same time, go have some conversations with some of these external solutions. Go find out what's out there. We've had people on this podcast that do coaching to help bring solutions to you on these external players, and they will spend quite a bit more time than you may realize to help you see what these options are. And we did it. That's part of why we're now putting on this Total Succession podcast, is to realize, hey, I think the mistake people make is they anchor on one without knowing what the other looks like. And the only way I think to make an educated decision is to inform yourself of both, and you'll find yourself gravitating to one or the other. And as you're exploring, especially the external, and you may get it down to one or two or three, or if you have a consultant, they may help whittle it down for you. Realize who on the team needs to be brought in to help with the buy-in and help with the decision making, because ultimately, in either of these cases, most likely the team that's helping service these clients are going to be left in one or the other scenarios. And finding who that leader is in the team, or who is going to kind of be the advisor in charge when you're no longer there as the founder, or who's going to be the next CEO of that location. Realizing who that is and bringing them in to help you decide, is it internal or external? Or is it
Yeah.
internal for so long, but if these things happen, maybe we need to find an external. But if we build these things out, and so it can be a both and instead of an either or, but it's something to definitely be exploring and thinking about as you're looking at what is your succession plan? What is going to happen if you passed away tomorrow? What's going to happen when you want to be done and when that time frame is? But I think the mistake I made, which is in learning, is why we're now putting this information out there. And what we're trying to do is help you, the listener, realize there's a lot of different options out there, and there are a lot of different ways to do that. And we're just scratching the surface on what some of those are, and they're worthy of exploration to make sure your clients are being cared for the way you care for them when you're no longer there doing it.
You don't need to pigeonhole yourself into one or the other. But here's a couple of questions I want to give you, the listener, to think about that might help give you a little bit of clarity on where you're at in this process, and if you've got some work to do in kind of even defining that. So, do you have your goals? You, the listener, think about this. Do you have your goals financially and personally all set for the terms of your legacy of your business? Who on your team is ready and willing internally to take this over? Are you actually comfortable with bringing in external ownership into your practice? What's your timeline? Are you 1 years or 5 years out? And how can you even think to prepare your clients and your team for this change? So you have to be able to start thinking on some of those questions. It's not clear that you're going to do one or the other based on that, but it's going to give you a little bit more clarity on one of those options that you need to start pursuing or digging into a little bit more. So let's give you, the listener, you need a little challenge. You need a little action to kind of take this next step, and kind of the reflection of this quick fire information for you. So if you're driving, or if you're like me and you listen to podcasts while you're walking, ask yourself a really simple question. If I wasn't in the office tomorrow, would my team and clients know what to do? Just sit in the awkwardness of that thought. Imagine the calls coming in and you're trying to hold the team. Can they hold the things together without you? Will your clients be questioning what's next? If your answer is not, I'm sure, then I think you have your starting point. Think about one small action you can take this week to make that picture a little clearer and a little bit more stable, so that you can start understanding the hurdle you have in front of you to clear, to start making decisions about the succession of your business.
And realize that it's you need to, as you're listening to this and to answer those questions, it's also realizing you need to break, it's not replacing you, it's replacing the roles you have, and replacing the roles you have. And this is very common in succession and exit planning in general, that there may need to be two or three people that take over what you were doing or what you've learned to do. Who's going to run the finances and the books and the decisions and payroll and comp? Who's going to run the portfolios, the risk management, the cash flow needs? Who's going to run the financial planning and the complex solutions? Who's going to deal with the client relationships and who's upset and how we need to help navigate the client to get to their goals and help them live the best life they can afford. Because most founders are wearing multiple hats, and maybe they've delegated some of it away here or there, but for the most part, they grow into this complexity and it's solving. And that's also part of the decision of internal, external. If it's internal, you may have to bring on or build up not just one, but a couple different leaders or a couple different skill sets to take over or learn things, whether or not they want to learn them, whether or not they have the gifting to learn to do those different tasks, or it's external. One of the other decisions of internal, external is asking yourself, how am I currently affiliated? Am I an employee of a broker dealer? Am I a 1099 and kind of these hybrid solutions that are out there with some of these custodians? Have I broken off and become an RA? Is that a better solution before I start learning internal or external or what those options are? Are my legal documents and employment agreements reflecting protecting my exit so the team is in both cases compensated in some regards and retained in other ways to make sure that they are incentivized to stay and continue to do the role when you're no longer there. Um, there's a lot of things to do in the succession process and that help define, is it going to be internal or external?
There's a lot of different ways you can try to approach this, and you listener, you might be thinking, "Well, I've already kind of started to do some of that." Sit down and think through what are the things that only you do in the firm that must be replaced upon your exit, upon the succession and sale of your business. Who's gonna still own those? Because there's probably gonna still be some of those things that, and there's nothing wrong that you have those still on your plate, but you're gonna have to start figuring out how you're gonna delegate those away, or in your solution for your exit, you might already have the answer of who's gonna take over that. So, Tyson, any final thoughts for today?
Yeah, sometimes when you don't know where to start and the urgency of the business crowds out the importance of making these decisions, either, reach out to us, reach out to other advisors that did internal successions, reach out to advisors that did external successions. Uh, just you need to take the time like you do for your client to be the client and get informed to then make informed decisions, and in that process be able to have some guidance on what's the first step for you, because the first step is different for everybody and the priorities are different for everybody. They all in some regards have to be done, but realize that there's a community out there. Everybody likes to help each other in this. This is one of the things I love about the financial services industry, is because advisors like to advise. They're more than willing to help share their experience with you. You just got to reach out and ask for some help.
Yeah, it's a good point. Thank you for that, Tyson, and we'll be back soon with more conversations like this.
These conversations are designed to support your next move, however close or far it may be. Tap subscribe and let each episode guide you closer to a confident, well-planned exit. I've wrestled with these things myself, and that's exactly why I created something to help you do it with less stress and more direction. My book, Total Succession, is now available on Amazon. Inside, I break the process down into 5 clear steps to help you exit on your terms with confidence, full compensation, and your client's best interests at heart. You can also visit totalsuccession.com/podcast to download a free starter guide that walks you through my SPACE framework: see, prepare, act, commit, exit. Remember, you only exit your business once. Create the space to do it well. Thanks for listening. Until next time.